This is the Ohio and Erie Canal. I'm Darren, and this is the Industrial Revolution. This canal began construction in 1825. That was the same year the Erie Canal was completed and opened for business. Prior to that, if you know Erie Canal history, you know that it was considered to be a waste of money and it'd never amount to anything. And then the Erie Canal took off and paid for itself in something like a year and was a massive business success. And Ohio saw that and they wanted to replicate it. So they actually launched into a fairly massive canal building operation. This canal runs from Cleveland, Ohio, through Akron, more or less straight south to the south end of the state at the Ohio River. There's a number of spurs that go off of it, heading east out into Pennsylvania, where it also hits the Ohio River as it comes out of Pittsburgh. And the canal, like the Erie Canal, was successful. So the canal was completed in 1832. It covers 308 miles north to south across the state of Ohio. It has 152 locks. Initially there were 148, but they had to add 4. And this is what's left of it today. I'm just south of Lake Erie here, near the far northern end of this canal. The towpath on the other side, that's part of the modern towpath trail, hike-bike trail shared by Cleveland Metro Parks and the Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area. Much of the northern part of the canal travels through various metro parks as well as the national park, and it's open to the public free of charge. So the first boat to travel on this canal was on July 7th, 1827, and came from Akron down to Cleveland. It was 37 miles, 41 locks, 3 aqueducts, and averaged an amazingly fast speed of, well, 3 miles an hour. There's actually a speed limit on the canal of 4 miles an hour. And the reason for the speed limit, in part because you were making mules pull these boats along, but also the faster you go, the more wake you have. The more wake you have, the more erosion, the more silt gets in, more dredging, more repairs to the towpath. So they set a limit of 4 miles per hour. Don't really know that was much of a concern because getting a mule to pull a canal boat that long, that fast, probably didn't really happen very often. So before the canal opened, you had to obviously have people dig it. And this was before you had a lot of heavy machinery, so digging was done mostly by hand with some assistance from horses or mules or oxen. And you had to pay your employees. Well, how much did they get paid? Not very much. They were paid 30 cents a day and a jigger of whiskey per day. That was initially when the canal was first started. By the time it finished, the pay had gone up considerably. At that point, you could get as much as $15 a month. So you weren't going to get rich digging the canal, but that did all include room and board. So here you see the Cuyahoga River down below us. This is the source of most of the water for this section of canal. As we walk down the towpath, we reach a point here where this is a overflow valve. This would prevent the canal from flooding by allowing surplus water to be drained down to the river. Upriver, you actually have places where the water was pulled out of the river and intentionally drained into the canal to provide water. Check out my video on canal water management if you want to see how complex that system could get and all the factors you had to take into consideration. So as we walk on the canal, you'll notice it's pretty grown over right now. Originally, the canal had a minimum width of 40 feet across at the top, a minimum width of 26 feet across at the bottom, and a minimum depth of 4 feet. Now, those numbers may seem a little weird, but the 40-foot top and 26-foot bottom was actually set in order to allow for 2 canal boats to pass. So when two boats met, one of the boats would pull over to the far bank, away from the towpath. It would drop its rope into the water. Its mule that was towing it would stop. It would drop the rope into the water, and the other boat would keep going, and it would pass over the top of that rope and continue on the side of the towpath. And then once it was past, the first boat would pull the surplus rope up and continue on its way. Now, although it was a minimum 40 feet at the top and 26 at the bottom, and a minimum depth of 4 feet, sometimes it was actually much, much larger than that. If you ran across a pond or a stream that happened to be in the right place, or a pond or a lake, of course you're going to use it. If you have a naturally occurring low area and you can simply route yourself along a piece of it and cut off a quarter-mile chunk that you build as your for your towpath, instead of going around a 5-mile long valley, of course you're going to do it. Maybe you just flood the whole valley. So some places were large. Speaking with one of the park historians, he actually said there was a canal around the Akron area, and he didn't remember which canal it was, where they ran the canal straight across the middle of a lake. And you'd think, well, what do you do for the towpath? And they had a floating log bridge that they used for a towpath. So the canal boats would be pulled by mules or horses that were on this floating bridge. So when the canal first opened, it was actually doing really well financially. Much like the Erie Canal, it cut transport time massively. You could get from north to south of the state in about 80 hours once the canal was opened. And that would replace a land-based trip that would otherwise take you several weeks to complete over pretty much unimproved dirt tracks through the woods. Unfortunately for the canal, and this was the fate of many canals, income peaked about 1850. And what happened in 1850, of course, is the railroads. The railroads started to take over. They started to expand through the area. And once the railroads were here, the canals just weren't as useful. The railroads were faster. They could carry more. The railroads also didn't have the problem of freezing up in the winter, unlike these canals. So they could run year-round. The last blow occurred in 1913. And that, strangely enough, was water. Canals live and die on water. If you have too little water, you can't get your boats through. If you have too much water, everything fails. And that's what happened in 1913. There were statewide floods throughout Ohio, throughout the region, due to bad storms. These floods caused banks to wash out. Water would erode around the locks. The aqueducts were damaged. The towpaths were damaged. There's pretty much nothing left undamaged at that point. And with the railroads already in place, the costs to repair hundreds and hundreds of miles of canal in Ohio was really just too high. So the canals were abandoned. Today, some of these canals are being brought back partially. I'm in a relatively new Canalways Metro Park, part of the Cleveland Metro Park system. The Cuyahoga Valley National Park is bringing back part of the canal upriver from here a ways. The towpath that I'm standing on is now partially paved. They're working on paving it further and setting that up as a hike-bike trail. And along the trail, there are signs telling you what you're looking at, telling you what was here. and also bringing up environmental issues and historical issues. And it's a really great trail if you want to come out and experience a combination of nature and history. So when you look at this, you may not see an interstate highway, but when people in the early 1800s, mid 1800s looked at this, that's exactly what they saw. This was the fastest form of transportation around, and this allowed business to thrive. It allowed people to migrate through here. It allowed new settlements, and that's why this is the Industrial Revolution. Anyway, I do need your help to keep this channel going. If you've enjoyed the video, please hit like and subscribe. Also, I do have a Patreon page over at patreon.com/industrialrevolution if you could help out there. This channel obviously involves a lot of travel to come out and see stuff like this. So if you could help me out, I'd appreciate that. Memberships start at just a few bucks a month.